Hello, everybody, and I hope you had a great trading week. This is Michael DeGioia with the Dash Trader Newsroom and our Midsummer Stock Watch. I hope everybody is trading well and enjoying their summer. My name is Michael DeGioia. I'm the Director of Educational Services and a licensed professional in the financial industry, brought to you here by Dash Trader. And let's jump right into the news and talk a little bit about the better than expected job growth. Today's non-farm payroll numbers were way better than everybody expected, and that brought unemployment down to a 5.4% level. Is the pandemic recession over, or are there more problems to come? And some of the things that are kind of looming in the horizon. Before I jump into the problems on the horizon, let's just talk a little bit about the Labor Department's numbers today. They came out this Friday that the U.S. economy created 943,000 jobs. That's the new non-farm payroll jobs for July. The nation's unemployment dropped to 5.4. That was way better than expected. That is probably some good news, that may have some positive effect on inflation. Just to go over what inflation means is basically prices are going up because there's more demand for the products than there is supply. And if people are working, that means that people may be creating more supply, which would meet some of that demand, and that would probably alleviate some of the inflation pressures. Now, from a different perspective, some of the problems that are on the horizon is the eviction ban. Right? We recently heard a month ago that the last eviction ban was passed, and then they weren't going to do anymore. And then, due to the Delta variant and the concerns about putting, I think it's something like 14 million families out on the streets. They extended the eviction ban for another 2 more months. Now, that's the CDC extended the eviction ban for another 2 more months. There's all kinds of questions about, whether that's, possible or not, what the long-term effects are. But certainly when that 2 months comes to an end, are they going to extend it again? Are they going to kick the can down the road again? Or are we going to see are we going to see a lot of people? I just can't imagine people being put out on the streets in the middle of winter in the United States of America, especially in the Northeast or the Northwest. But certainly that would bring us to, if you go down actually 2 more months out, that would be putting us right into the beginning of the autumn and fall. So I see that as kind of something that would be hard to believe. But needless to say, that is something that's impending on the horizon. Certainly landlords are not happy about this. So in other news, the White House backs senators pushing for stricter crypto reporting rules. Is the cryptocurrency Wild West about to be tamed by Washington? And really, when we talk about the crypto Wild West, I mean, there really is very little regulation in the crypto markets. I mean, certainly the SEC has done a lot to kind of rein in some of the crazy ICOs, the initial coin offerings that happened a couple of years back. And now we have certainly far less swashbuckling exchanges out there. There's been a lot of talk about the reining in of Binance, and obviously we now have the biggest crypto exchange out there on the market, trading as a stock, Coinbase, COIN. We'll take a look at Coinbase. We'll take a look at some of the major crypto ETFs, the 2 big ones being Bitcoin and Ethereum. So certainly, we have a very, very big change. Bitcoin is represented by the GBTC, so we're going to take a look at that one. And then ETHE is the ETF that represents Ethereum. And then there's a lot of other crypto-related stocks out there on the in the actual markets. So we'll take a look at a couple of those. And of course, we have come to the end of earnings season, and earnings season is not quite done yet. But needless to say, we are coming to the close of earnings season, and for the most part, many of the big name stocks have already come out. We're going to take a look at some of those stocks that have come out with earnings. I mean, the big ones were like Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Amazon. And what we've noticed is there's been this tendency for the trend has been to have blowout earnings, but to have some kind of revision down going forward as the pandemic and the movement of everybody from analog to digital has kind of slowed up a little bit. Even now, with the Delta variant raging in the United States and Europe, it seems that people were interested in doing things that were of a more analog and physical sense than the year that they kind of spent in the digital world. So certainly they are revising down, and we're going to take a look at Netflix. We'll take a look at Apple. We'll take a look at Facebook. We'll take a look at Google and Microsoft. Certainly some of these plays have really, these stocks have done some incredible moves to the upside. Although the earnings were great, the reaction in the stock itself was fairly small. So let's jump right to the charts, and I'm just going to share my screen. New share. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this perfectly well. This is my Dash Trader software. And as always, I like to just point out on the Dash Trader software, you have the ability to kind of bring up the charts that have the indicators that you like on them. So every time I just always remind people that if you right click, you bring up your little menu here, you hit load settings. I personally like to look at my charts with my volume-based price and my 2 moving averages with a couple of indicators on there. It makes my charts look really, really fresh and clean. I got my CCI on there as well. So let's take a look at the daily chart, okay? And when we look at the daily chart here on the SPY, this is the spiders, which represents the S&P 100 index, you can see we are at all-time highs. And I'm just going to jump to the weekly chart, because what you can see here is that we have some real big weekly divergence. I mean, we got into the overbought region. I mean, we were way overbought, and yet we're still up on the price level. So prices are at all-time highs, yet we are significantly overbought, okay, on the CCI. So, I mean, there is a very big chance that we have a divergence ready to pop. Now, I say pop because we are coming into the most bearish time of the year. It is the 3 months of the year that tend to be most bearish. Usually August, September, and October are the 3 most bearish times of the year. Now, that has not been the case. That was not the case last year. It was not the case. I mean, certainly there's been other times. Let's just take a look here. This was April, right? This was April and May, right? This is on the weekly chart. So certainly we got to go all the way back. Let's go back a little bit. I don't think they go back on the weeklies here too far, but needless to say, last year we did not have that trend, but many years, statistically since 2000, August, September, and October are the 3 biggest bearish months of the year. And that's right before the Santa Claus rally. Now, the other thing I'd like to point out is from a weekly perspective, we've been up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We haven't had a multi-week sell-off in 11 weeks. That means that since the end of April into May, we have not had a multi-week sell-off. And coming into the 3 most bearish months of the year with a divergence on the CCI after earnings that were stellar, but didn't really do much for stock price, that is something really to be concerned about. Now, I just want to point out that this is the Apple Weekly. Apple had their earnings here last week, and they were great. They were absolutely phenomenal, but Apple said that the semiconductor shortage is starting to take a little bit of an effect, and that will affect future iPhone sales in the coming year. That's the semiconductor shortage interruption in the supply chain. Let's take a look at Microsoft. And notice I'm taking a look at weeklies here. Microsoft at all-time highs, had earnings, stock hasn't gone anywhere. Amazon had earnings, stock is down. Earnings were great, so be it what it may, certainly that trend is continuing. Let's take a look at Facebook. Off its highs, earnings were last week. So Facebook also had earnings and off their highs. Let's take a look at Google. Everybody all the major tech companies ran into earnings, but they are now off their highs after really blowing out their earnings expectations. Let's take a look at Intel. Now, Intel got crushed on its earnings. And Intel is is the biggest semiconductor company, but it's on a kind of a different trajectory. It has certainly AMC was way not AMC. What do you call it? AMD. AMC is the crazy stock, but AMD squeezed all the way up, had amazing earnings, and has really come off its high by 12 points after the big squeeze on AMD, which is a semiconductor company. So what I'm trying to point out to everybody here is, from a technical perspective, the move has been phenomenal. It's been great. We're going into the end of the summer. We had no sell in May and go away trend this year. Zero sell in May and go away trend this year. We continue to go higher all the way into the summer's earnings season, and for that matter, now it's looking like, let's take a look at GBTC. I mean, if I were to look at Bitcoin, and let's take a look at Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin looks like it's ready to go up, even though they're saying that they're potentially looking at regulating it more. So what we're seeing here is that on the regular stock markets, and I'm going to take a look at the DIA, everything is showing in the overbought region. Notice the CCI here, CCI overbought. Let's take a look at the SPY, overbought. QQQ, overbought. Overbought across the board. And let's just see it, USO, this is oil. Oil correcting down. So oil had a big sell-off this week. Oil went from 50 on the USO down to 47.50. That's a pretty significant sell-off. A lot of times oil will lead the market if it sees a drop in demand coming in the near future, meaning that things aren't going to be moving as much. Let's take a look at some companies with the infrastructure bill, which was another big piece of news. Certainly 3M would be a beneficiary of the infrastructure bill. Let's take a look at X. X looks good, certainly ran up in the last 2 weeks with the infrastructure bill. So needless to say, you can see that there is a very good chance that technology has had the run on technology is taking a pause, maybe not coming to an end, but certainly taking a pause. And let me just see Alcoa. Yeah, Alcoa infrastructure bill, big producer of aluminium, and certainly Alcoa would benefit from that infrastructure bill. But needless to say, we're seeing lots of signals that the markets are overbought, and that doesn't mean that we're going to sell off and go into a new Great Depression. That just means that we might be ready for some kind of a correction at the very, very least. So please be aware of that, and take note of your CCI. I'm going to bring up my MACD as well. So I'm just going to go load settings, and I'm going to bring up my MACD, one of my charts with my MACD and RSI as well as CCI. So let's just pop that open. Actually, that one's not labeled correctly. It has the Bollinger Bands on there. Let's do MACD. That's with Bollinger Bands. Let's just do MACD. Here you go. All right, so here, this one has the CCI and the MACD. Now I want you to take a look here. This is on Apple on the daily chart. Let me just do Apple, AAPL, daily chart on Apple. So notice that the MACD crossed over on Apple right here. Okay, so right here, the MACD crossed over on Apple. So we crossed over back here a couple of weeks back. We had earnings last week. We sold off on earnings. And I mean, we were deeply overbought. Now we actually look like we might break down on Apple. The MACD is negative. We have really, really overbought readings on the CCI repeatedly. And we actually, and I'm just going to draw this. This is one of our technical tools here, the trend line tool. I mean, this is a bearish divergence. Okay, we have lower highs occurring under the CCI on the CCI, on the highs of the CCI. So we are making lower highs repeatedly. So yeah, I mean, this is looking like things might not be too hot for Apple. And let's take a look at Microsoft, MSFT. Microsoft certainly looking better, but deeply overbought at its highs. Certainly looking better than Apple. But after a very, very mature uptrend. Google also looking better than Apple, but made a high and has come off of its highs a little bit. Amazon, you know, Amazon had really very, very good earnings, but have guided down. And that's the big gap that you see there. That's the big earnings gap on Amazon, but still Amazon had a high and a lower high, which is a very bearish sign going into earnings, by the way. And the MACD is kind of trending to the downside. Let's take a look at GBTC, which is the Bitcoin ETF. I mean, that's like breakout city, gap up, breakout city on Bitcoin. So Bitcoin might be getting ready for another run based on this chart. And this chart is the GBTC, which is the ETF for Bitcoin, meaning that it's broken out above its moving averages. It's broken out to the positive direction with its histogram on its MACD. And it's also you know, kind of in the positive territory, but not overbought yet on the CCI. So all the indicators are looking good on that one. ETHE was the other one I said we were going to look at, also looking good. This is the Ethereum ETF, kind of breaking out to the upside. So cryptocurrencies, which has kind of been in the doghouse for a month, 2.5 months, 2.5, 3 months. Cryptocurrencies are in the doghouse, and certainly the indexes are all at their highs, and most of the big names have already had earnings. TTWO, I wanted to take a look at this one. They had a big outage, TTWO. You know, they went out. They said it was some kind of a technical glitch, whatever. But certainly their stock not looking so hot these days. They are kind of the backbone that powers streaming data on the internet. And you know, these technology stocks that you don't know so much about, when you see them not doing so well and in the doghouse, that's usually a sign that there's kind of a broader correction, you know, coming down the pike. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to jump back to the chart, back to the slideshow presentation. Let's jump back to here. Let's close this up and let's talk a little bit about our newest release. We just released our newest video of our latest 8-part series, Styles of Trading, on YouTube. So we have just released our latest video on yet another style of trading that I've used during the course of my trading career. Visit our Dash Trader Pro YouTube channel to view it. Stay up to date on all things Dash Trader by signing up to our monthly newsletter. Simply fill out the form at the bottom of the webpage. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Dash Trader TV, for Dash Trader newsroom reminders, and follow us on social media at Dash Trader, www.linkedin.com/company/Dash Trader /Inc. Certainly Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can follow us on any of our social media outlets, and we'd love to have you following us and subscribing to our updates. And have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Will be great to see you in 2 weeks as the summer wraps up. Stay well and see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.